Number 10. Python fights bat. If you live long enough on this planet, you see some pretty crazy things. But you know what? I guarantee you've never witnessed a snake fighting a bat. Recent footage from Australia captured the moment that a python tried to gobble up a giant bat that had been just minding its own business in a tree. But what's really incredible is that the huge snake couldn't seem to get past the wings. It struggled and struggled, trying to swallow the bat in one gulp. However, the bat's wings proved way too large. And this kinda sucked because even though the bat lost the fight after the python strangled it to death, it didn't even end up being food. It was a total waste of effort and life. The python got its jaws over part of the bat, but the wings were simply impossible. This is why snakes tend to eat things that don't fly, except for the occasional small bird or much smaller bat. Even though the python was 8 feet long, it was still no match for the giant bat. Maybe this is one serpent that should stick to its normal diet, eating possums and other small creatures. As a side note, it's important to mention that contrary to what a lot of people think, pythons don't actually unhinge their jaws to eat. It's not true at all. According to Early Touch News, pythons have very mobile jawbones which are able to expand outward and then widen their mouth opening, allowing them to swallow animals far larger than their own heads. But still, they absolutely do not unhinge their jaws. Number 9. Community moving. When it comes to moving a person's house, you don't really have a lot of options. In North America, the only way you're moving a house is if it's a mobile home and you have some seriously heavy equipment to do the job. But in Malaysia, things have been done differently for hundreds of years. I bet that you've never seen a community get together to move somebody's home by picking the structure up and repositioning it to somewhere else. This amazing transition from Malaysia involves everyone in the community getting together, grabbing a piece of the house, and then just lifting it up. They don't use any machines, they don't have any special equipment other than some very heavy logs that they place underneath the wooden house, and all they use is the power of their own muscles. But like most transitions, this one has been fading in recent years, and that's because of a number of reasons. First, there aren't that many wooden homes anymore. Most newer homes in Malaysia are crafted from brick or another material that's unable to be lifted and moved in such a way. Secondly, the newest generation simply doesn't really seem to care that much. But a group of villagers in Kuala Kangsar teamed up with a crew of university students to move an old wooden house about 450 feet in one go. The activity was organized to expose the younger generation to this ancient tradition and show them what things were like back in the day. According to the report from the Malay Mail, this was the first time that many people in this village had seen a wooden house be lifted and carried since the 1960s. And if they haven't seen it, then I guarantee you haven't seen it either. What's the strangest thing you've seen that you don't think many other people may have? Tell me about it in the comments below, and then remember to subscribe to World List if you haven't already for more amazing videos just like this one. Number 8. Ferry runs over whale. This is one of those tragic incidents you hear about but never believe you'll actually see with your own eyes. Imagine the horror all those aboard a Washington State ferry felt when they did a hit and run on a whale. Everyone knows at least one person who's hit something or run something over and decided to just keep on trucking. Well, that's exactly what happened near Mukilteo. According to local officials with Washington State ferries, 2 whales appeared on the starboard side of the Tokatay ferry, and were so close that the boat didn't have enough time to come to a stop. The result was that the ferry hit one of the whales, causing it major injuries. Biologists who inspected the injuries sustained by the whale went on to say that there would be little hope that the poor animal would survive. Of course, everybody's department was claiming that their employee followed the proper protocols. All blame has been shifted off the ferries, off the driver, and off anyone else who might have been involved. And therefore, the blame has been placed directly on the whales. But to be quite honest, it's not really their fault that they're swimming in their own home, in the ocean. Number 7. Real-life swamp monster. A horrifying video has recently surfaced of something you won't even believe is real. It's definitely something you've never seen before. A real-life swamp monster was just spotted crawling out of a toilet and then slithering like a sentient piece of goo across the floor. This disturbing footage was filmed inside somebody's family bathroom. According to the local news reports, some are claiming that the creature was born inside the pipes. Not only that, but many people believe that the swamp monster was born in the pipes and then continued to grow and survive by, get this, eating sewage. The beast may have emerged from the plumbing only when it became too big for its environment. Somehow the family managed to be there recording at the exact moment the mysterious creature raised its tiny head out of the toilet and then pulled its slimy body out from the sewer and across the floor. According to the people who actually saw this beast, it was roughly 6 feet long and had a fat and thick body. Even though it looked kinda like a snake, it was too flat and too slimy and, to be honest, a little too swampy. Apparently the homeowners managed to get a sack to stuff the animal into, and they deposited whatever the beast was inside of a nearby river. To this day, they still don't know what it was, and I guarantee you, yet again, that you've never seen a swamp monster crawl out of your own toilet, and if you have, please definitely leave a comment. Number 6. A dead dragon. So, what about a dead dragon? Have you ever witnessed a mythical dead dragon sitting on the floor of your house? No? Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, this is a dragon like something straight out of the never-ending story that was allegedly shot and killed in Malaysia. Images of the dragon appeared online just recently, showing a long monster with white fluffy fur, some long horns coming out of its head, a bright pink nose, and 2 extremely long whiskers. It definitely looks like it came out of an anime and then was shot in somebody's kitchen. And even though you've probably never witnessed this, and I have certainly never witnessed it, the truth is that nobody in the world has ever witnessed a real dragon. This photograph apparently surfaced in March of 2015, but according to Snopes, it is complete hogwash. The image has not been doctored or altered, but the story was definitely a hoax. Just imagine this dragon breaking into a random person's kitchen and then them just shooting it on sight. It sounds totally ridiculous. Snopes says that the dragon was actually created as a sculpture inside of an art studio, with the original video being uploaded back in 2014. It's not clear who made the dragon or why, but it's still a pretty cool looking thing. Number 5. The MARFA lights. The MARFA lights have been seen by very few people. Yes, they have mystified Texans and Native Americans for generations, but you have to be pretty lucky to spot them. If you're not familiar with the MARFA lights, they're mysterious glowing orbs that sometimes materialize outside the Texas town of MARFA. According to eyewitness testimonies from throughout the years, the lights are roughly the size of volleyballs and range in color from white to blue and yellow to red. The orbs of light twinkle, sometimes split in two, float crazily through the air, and then vanish. There's absolutely zero way that anyone can predict when the lights will appear. They've been spotted during several different weather events, and the best estimates put sightings at about a dozen times each year. Live Science claims that nobody knows what the MARFA lights are or if they actually even exist. This is one of those things that even if you saw it, you may not have actually seen it. Number 4. Volcanic lighting. Volcanic lighting is one of those miraculous lifetime events that can really only be seen once, and even then only a handful of people will ever witness such an amazing phenomenon. Some of the only photographic evidence of volcanic lighting goes all the way back to April 18th of 2010, when lightning and lava mixed inside the vent of a massive volcano in central Iceland, creating one of the most epic explosions ever. Purely by luck, a photographer happened to be standing in the area when it happened and got some spectacular snapshots. He actually witnessed the lightning strike stabbing into the very heart of the volcano. It's an amazing thing to see, and I'm honestly kind of a little jealous. But here's what's interesting. The intricacies surrounding volcanic lightning are still somewhat mysterious to scientists. The general theory is that when plumes are emitted from the volcano, they become electrically charged. Depending on the heat coming from the volcano and the meteorological conditions, it creates a kind of superheated cloud just at the mouth of the volcano, mixing ash with lightning and fire with thunder. Sounds like something out of a Marvel movie. Number 3. A Cyclops kitten. If you've never seen a Cyclops in real life, well, you're not the only one. But be prepared for the shock of a lifetime, because you're about to look at a Cyclops kitten. In a disturbing turn of events, a kitten was recently born with just one eye in the center of its head. The Bengal kitten was allegedly delivered in the operating room of a veterinarian just a few years ago. Everyone in the room was shocked and speechless when they noticed the strange deformity had left the kitten with no nose, a very bizarre face, and one giant eye in the center of its forehead. Of course, the Cyclops is nothing like the beast from Greek mythology. In fact, this story is actually quite tragic. As you can probably already guess, the unfortunate Cyclops kitten died shortly after being born. After the disturbing events, the owners of the Cyclops kitten said that they were happy to have met the little guy, but they would not be eager to repeat the experience. The owners went on to say that the kitten didn't suffer in the least, and that trying to keep the Cyclops kitten alive would have just been inhumane and cruel. Number 2. The Brick Road Machine. Here's something you've almost certainly never seen. It's a machine that can print paved roads as if laying down carpet. It's a semi-automatic robot known as the Tiger Stone, and it's able to lay bricks that are pre-arranged in a continuous layer for roads, sidewalks, and anything else a human might want to walk on. In a single day, the machine is able to put down about 3 times more than any conventional method. It only needs 3 workers to operate it, and all the workers have to do is stand on the platform and fill the slots in the machine with loose bricks, and then watch as the road is paved behind them. It's a really cool piece of technology, and probably one of the first useful machines we'll see coming up that replaces tradesmen and laborers alike. Need a road built? Just print one out. Need a new house? Hey, you could probably print that too. This Tiger Stone is so handy that it can even make various different patterns depending on preference. It can use all kinds of different stones. It can mix and match. And it can really do about as much as your imagination can conceive. It's also less noisy, it's eco-friendly, and it can operate for a full week with just 1 electric charge. It also requires almost no maintenance. Believe it or not, this really is the future of technology. Number 1. A fallen angel. So you might think you've seen an angel before. Maybe you saw one in a dream, maybe you hallucinated one on a particularly bad night in college, or maybe you really did have a vision of an angelic being. But a recent photo has revealed a very physical angel in the real world that apparently crashed to Earth from the sky. But be warned, this is not like any angel you've ever imagined in your head. Rather than having cool angel wings with white feathers, this angel was an old man with wings that looked a lot more like the most disturbing chicken wings you've ever seen. But just like that nonsensical dragon, this angel isn't even real. According to Snopes, the photograph of the angel that dropped out of the skies above London began circulating online in 2015, with somebody giving the images a fake headline. The truth is that the photographs show an art installation, something known as a hyper-realistic sculpture that was crafted from fiber-reinforced polymer and a special gel. The angel was created by artists from Beijing way back in 2008 and has since been photoshopped into all kinds of different locations. So the next time you see an angel on the internet, don't let yourself be fooled too easily. An extremely brave man from Norway named Lars recently discovered a duck was trapped inside a frozen lake, and he risked his own life to save the poor animal. This is one of the most extraordinary stories about something strange found in the ice, but it gets even stranger. Lars first discovered the duck while out for his weekly swim. The animal had somehow gotten frozen inside of the ice sheet covering the lake. The man actually dove into the frozen lake, smashed the ice around the duck to get it out, and then even gave it mouth-to-mouth to save its life. The duck was so disoriented after being saved that it didn't seem to know what to do with itself. It waddled around in confused circles for a bit before it was able to get its bearings. As for Lars, well, he was wet and cold, but really that's nothing an ice-swimming Norwegian can't handle. In the end, the duck was saved, and hopefully it learned its lesson about diving into frozen waters. This guy is clearly an animal lover. So would you jump into an icy lake to save a duck? Number 9. Mysterious monster. A group of diamond miners working in one of the most remote regions of Siberia recently stumbled upon a strange monster frozen in the ice, and nobody really knows what it is. The diamond miners discovered the peculiar creature frozen in the sand during a time when the temperature was way below freezing and described it as being a monster mummy. The mummified beast was extremely well preserved, complete with creepy fangs and sharp toenails. But the truth is that the monster could actually be a dinosaur from the Mesozoic era, because the diamondiferous sands in which it was discovered date back to between 252 and 66 million years ago. Either the workers found a curious cryptid unknown to science, or they found the perfectly frozen remains of an ancient monster that lived alongside prehistoric reptiles. As of right now, nobody has properly identified the odd specimen. It could be an extinct type of ancient wolverine, or maybe it's a frozen chupacabra. I mean, it does kind of look like one. Until scientists are able to take the weird monster back to a lab to study it, we can really only guess at its identity. And until archaeologists do some digging in the area, we won't know how many other frozen monsters are hiding in the sand, just waiting to be discovered. Number 8. Ancient flower blooms again. Thanks to some very special seeds found by excited scientists that happen to have been trapped under the ice for 30,000 years by squirrels, a new type of plant has amazingly been revived. There were about 70 squirrel burrows found underneath the thick ice in Siberia, along with plenty of mammoth bones and hundreds of thousands of fruits and plant seeds. Because of the freezing cold, all of these amazing relics were perfectly preserved. The scientists quickly took the frozen seeds and tried to grow them to see what kind of miracle plant would start to grow. This resulted in an incredible species of prehistoric plant being resurrected for the first time in 30,000 years. According to the study published in the journal Nature, the flowers have already bloomed and produced their own fertile seeds. And while this may not seem extraordinary on the outside, it actually is. These scientists basically brought back to life a previously dead plant from the Ice Age, and it's actually quite lovely. If they can do it with seeds, hopefully sooner or later they could do it with a woolly mammoth and other prehistoric Ice Age animals too. So what does that mean for the future? Will we be able to freeze humans for thousands of years and have future generations bring them back to life? Who wants to be first in line to try that out? Hey, real quick before we continue, I want to say thanks for checking out the channel. Give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one. Number 7. The body of a dead alien. Back to the Siberian wasteland, some random guys just enjoying their day walking through the snow have allegedly discovered the dead body of an alien previously frozen in the ice. According to the report from the Daily Mail, these curious men actually captured a video of the strange alien just outside of the Russian city of Irkutsk, half buried in the snow. The body appeared to be very damaged, and so it could have met some kind of accidental end before being frozen. Ever since the photo was uploaded online, there's been a huge argument in the scientific community about whether the badly damaged corpse is actually from an extraterrestrial, with some claiming it's just a hoax. But if this is a hoax, it's a pretty good one. Part of one of the legs is missing, there are deep holes in the head that are missing eyes, and some UFO enthusiasts are claiming that the body was probably left behind by visitors to the planet perhaps hundreds of thousands of years ago, and the alien has been frozen in the ice ever since. It actually looks a whole lot like E.T. This could be a staged video in which the uploaders used a model or a puppet, but it looks pretty real. Greetings, ice aliens! Number 6. A frozen message in a bottle. In January 2021, when a woman from Norway named Helen was just wandering along the beach looking for a nice place to set up her hammock and make a fire and relax, she came across a mysterious frozen message in a bottle. You might be wondering how a frozen message in a bottle is different from a normal message in a bottle, and well, the only difference is that this bottle's frozen. After discovering the frozen bottle, Helen opened it up and read the note inside. It turned out to be 16 years old. It was tossed into the sea by a couple from Shetland in the United Kingdom who were sailing out in the ocean for 10 days. The note came from August of 2004, and written on the note was a request for whoever found the bottle to contact its owners. Helen actually did try to contact the couple who wrote the note via the email they left, but when she tried to do that, she found out that the email was no longer in use. So she took to social media, and within an hour, Peter and Susan Henry answered. They've been pen pals for a couple weeks now and even plan on meeting each other once this pandemic is over. Unfortunately for us, it doesn't really get any more dramatic than that. The message was not a cry for help or a clue in any ancient murder investigation, but it was still a pretty strange find for Helen, who had just wanted to relax on the beach and have a nice fire. Number 5. World War II fighter plane. On July 5, 1942, 6 P-38 Lightning fighter aircrafts and 2 B-17 Flying Fortress bombers got stuck in a blizzard. All 8 vehicles were forced to make an emergency landing on a glacier in Greenland. The crews were eventually rescued after 9 miserable days in the frozen wasteland, but they were forced to leave their aircrafts behind. Over the following decades, the shifting ice and falling snow of Greenland buried all of the aircrafts. They became known as the Lost Squadron. They were lost beneath about 300 feet of ice. It took 50 years for one of the P-38s to finally be discovered again. In 1992, it became famously known as the Glacier Girl after it was taken from the ice and restored to its original pristine condition. All these years later, another P-38 from the Lost Squadron is also being retrieved out of the ice. According to the article from Popular Mechanics, the newest aircraft was discovered using special ground-penetrating radar. A specialized team then went to undergo the long process of removing all the individual pieces of the airplane. But even after the second fighter aircraft is recovered and restored, there are still 4 planes and 2 bombers hidden somewhere underneath the Greenland glacier just waiting to be found. Number 4. Man stuck in the ice. A man in China recently got stuck beneath the ice and almost died. In fact, the video of this little incident ended up going viral across social media platforms. Man was in his underwear when he decided it would be a good idea to jump into an icy lake with his friends filming the stunt. He was trying to be cool, but ended up looking like a fool. Unfortunately for him, it's a bit disorienting under the ice. He jumped into the frozen lake through a small hole, and then he couldn't find his way out. He ended up beating on the glassy ice in a desperate attempt to escape. The only thing that saved this guy's life was when his friends rushed out into the lake and jumped on it as hard as they could to break the ice sheet apart. Working together, his friends finally managed to free him from his underwater prison after he had been pawing at the ice for an unbelievable amount of time. This guy was just seconds away from becoming a dead popsicle. Again, let this be a lesson to you. Don't try to swim in a lake frozen over with ice, even if there's a small hole in it calling out your name. Number 3. The Siberian Ice Maiden. The Siberian Ice Maiden is one of the weirder mummies ever found anywhere on the planet. This mummy was buried sometime in the 5th century BC, and she wasn't seen again until 1993, when archaeologists in the Republic of Altai, Russia, discovered her subterranean burial chamber. The chamber was discovered by Natalia Polosmak and her team during excavations in the summer. The Ice Maiden had been part of the Pazyryk culture that lived and thrived on the Siberian steppe between the 6th and 2nd centuries BC. This is an area with an extremely harsh and arid climate, with freezing temperatures and vast swaths of nothingness. The area is almost always covered in some amount of ice. Even after the researchers found the mysterious Ice Maiden's tomb, they still had to use special methods to melt the ice inside the icy underground chamber just to get the body out of the coffin and the artifacts out of the tomb. Everything was literally frozen. The Ice Maiden became one of the most spectacular mummies of all time. She had died between her 20s and 30s, and new evidence from 2014 suggested that she had actually had breast cancer when she died. She was even found with extremely well-preserved skin, revealing that she had tattoos of animals on her shoulders, wrist, and thumb. Number 2. The Ice Volcano. One of the strangest things that no one would really ever expect to find frozen in ice is a giant volcano, right? But in Kazakhstan, a massive 45-foot ice volcano has just appeared out of nowhere. This happened in February of 2021, when a hollow cone reached out of the earth and began erupting with squirts of spring water that literally froze into ice crystals when they came into contact with the frigid air. According to Live Science, this bizarre ice structure is sitting on top of a hot spring. And it's not actually a volcano in the typical sense. There's no lava or ash or gas. This is a buildup of spring water that is frozen into what can only be described as an ice volcano. However, the way that a lofty ice volcano forms is very cool. It all happens during freezing temperatures, normally when a wave creates a huge burst of pressure that cracks through an ice sheet on a coastline and forces the water out. Over time, the squirting water freezes and creates a cone that looks exactly like a volcano. Then, when the water is squirting out the top, it turns into something like frozen water vapor, which mimics ash bursting from the mouth of a volcano. The ice volcano has since become a popular spot for locals and tourists, where visitors can take pictures and admire the beauty of this natural marvel. Number 1. The SLUG HIPPO. During a recent expedition to Antarctica, researchers working on New Zealand's research ship the RV Tangaroa found a surprising new creature thousands of feet below the surface of the frozen waters surrounding Antarctica. The exceptional thing about this creature is that it kind of looks like a mix between a slug and a hippopotamus. It's absolutely ridiculous and a little gross looking. According to one of the researchers involved with the discovery, the creature was unlike anything ever seen before. The strange little creature was brought onto the vessel with the help of a fishing net, and the scientists tried to identify it, but they couldn't. The slimy, slug-like hippo thing is not part of any species currently known by science. And the researchers don't even know how many of them are at the bottom of the icy ocean near Antarctica, and they certainly don't know what purpose they serve. James Bulger, just a toddler, was abducted from a shopping center in Merseyside back in 1993. It started as a huge mystery and turned into one of the most violent murders in British history. No one knew what happened to James at first, but then footage was found of 2 slightly older boys leading James out of the shopping center by hand. After an extensive search, John Venables and Robert Thompson were caught and arrested for this horrific crime. It turned out the depraved duo had stolen the 2-year-old, took him to a railway line, tortured and beat him, and sexually abused him. They dumped molding paint into his eyes, threw stones at him, beat him with bricks, and then eventually left him laying on the railroad tracks to be run over by a train. You might be thinking that these two were grown men, but they were actually only 10 years old when they abducted and murdered James. Both boys ended up being the youngest convicted murderers in British history in 250 years. And despite the massive controversy, both men were released in 2001 and given new identities, which actually cost the taxpayers millions of dollars. And after spending all the taxpayer money to give these guys a new life, John Venables was caught in 2010 with child abuse images on his computer, and then released once more in 2013 before being caught and jailed almost immediately for the exact same offense. According to a recent report from The Sun, he's still sitting in jail today and doesn't want to be released because he reoffended. Number 9. The Roanoke Colony. Settlers first tried to colonize Roanoke Island in what would later become North Carolina in 1587. But a lack of supplies forced the governor John White to sail back to England for more. What should have been a short trip turned into a much longer one. When John arrived, a war had begun and Queen Elizabeth I called every ship to serve. He returned back to Roanoke in 1590 but quickly found out there was no one left to return to. His wife, kids, and the entire colony had disappeared. The only trace of any inhabitants to find were the words Croatoan carved into a wooden post. Everyone had simply vanished. There have been a lot of theories over the years as to what happened to these settlers, but the truth is that nobody knows for certain. Some say that the colonists were killed by a local tribe and disposed of, but no evidence has ever been found. Others say they joined the tribe, but why didn't they let their families know? Another theory is that they tried to sail home and got lost at sea or ran into pirates. To this day, it's one of the great American mysteries. So what do you think really happened to these English settlers? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 8. D.B. Cooper. The vanishing of D.B. Cooper is one of the most intriguing stories in United States history. In 1971, he got on Northwest Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, bound for Seattle. He was wearing a dark suit and people described him as looking like a businessman. While in the air, he showed a flight attendant a bomb inside of his briefcase and hijacked the aircraft. He demanded $200,000 in cash when they landed in Seattle, 4 parachutes, and a change in flight path. The money was delivered. The plane took off from Seattle with just 3 pilots and 1 flight attendant on board, and somewhere just north of Portland, he jumped out of the airplane with the parachute and his money. Of course, jets and helicopters were called from the closest air base to try and catch this man. And 1,000 troops searched the zone where D.B. Cooper could have landed after jumping out of the plane. But despite their greatest efforts, nobody could ever find him. It wasn't until 9 years later that a young boy found 3 bundles of cash while digging in the sand. These were bundles of cash from D.B. Cooper's ransom money. But again, nobody had any idea how the cash got buried in the sand, and Cooper wasn't found. Even though the FBI has closed the case, there is still absolutely no clue as to his identity or where he went after parachuting out of the airplane. It's one of the most successful heists of all time. Number 7. Phoenix Colden. In 2011, 23-year-old Phoenix Colden vanished into thin air. Her car was discovered with her glasses and some other personal belongings still inside. At the time of the disappearance, Phoenix's family actually had a difficult time getting the police to take it seriously. The police simply wanted to ignore the case and call Phoenix a runaway. But her family said she was a fun, talented, and deeply religious college student and was adamant that she would never run away. But here's where things get weirder. Turns out, after the disappearance, Phoenix's family discovered that she hadn't re-enrolled in college like she was supposed to. She'd also been living with a man whom they didn't know, and she even had 2 cell phones. This turned into one of the most controversial disappearances of recent history. Some people believe Phoenix ran off to start a new life. Her family insisted that she had been taken by sex traffickers. To this day, nobody knows the truth. Phoenix has yet to resurface, and no proof of any crime is actually there. Number 6. The Springfield 3. The case of Susie Streeter, her mother Cheryl, and friend Stacy McCall is known famously as the Springfield 3. The three women vanished on June 7th of 1992 without a trace. The case is currently 28 years old, and there are still no clues as to what happened to these three women. Susie and Stacy went out on the night of June 7th to a few different graduation parties. They were last seen around 2 o'clock in the morning heading back to Susie's house to call it a night. Something then happened between 2 in the morning and 9 in the morning, at which time one of the girls' friends came knocking on Susie's door. Nobody answered. Susie and Stacy were gone, and so was Susie's mother. Their cars were still sitting outside, and their purses were inside, and all the clothing was there, and the front door was unlocked. This is one of the stranger cases because it's hard to imagine three girls being abducted out of their house without leaving a single shred of evidence. There wasn't even any signs of struggle. They literally vanished into thin air, and to this day, nobody knows how. Number 5. Lauren Spearer. The disappearance of Lauren Spearer in 2011 was one of the most mysterious incidents of all time. Lauren had been studying at Indiana University. She was only 20 years old when she vanished. She was out with friends on June 2nd in Bloomington, Indiana. She was captured on surveillance at a local bar at 12:51 a.m., and she was spotted outside of a friend's house at 4:30 a.m., but she was never seen again after that. Nobody knows what happened to Lauren, where she could have gone, and the FBI still has the case open. But here's where things get gruesome. According to a recent report by the Daily Mail, Lauren vanished during a time when other local girls in the area were also going missing under similar circumstances. And on the night of her disappearance, there was allegedly a white pickup truck circling the area that may have been involved in her kidnapping. But whoever these monsters are, it's been 10 years, and they haven't slipped up or given the police any clues. Her mother still publicly asks that anyone with pertinent information come forward to help find Lauren. Number 4. Jim Sullivan. Jim Sullivan may very well have been kidnapped by aliens. He's one of the most high-profile disappearances in the last 50 years. Jim Sullivan was a singer and songwriter that made 2 popular albums between 1969 and 1972. He was rising up in the world as a respected musician, playing in the best clubs and really making a name for himself. He even made friends in the movie business, and he was spotted as an extra in Easy Rider alongside Jack Nicholson. But Jim Sullivan's story ended prematurely. It was 1975 when his car was found abandoned near a ranch in New Mexico on Route 66. Nobody knew what happened to Jim. He had allegedly left behind all of his belongings, including his beloved guitar, all of his clothes, and all of his money. And considering this was in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, there wasn't exactly just any place that Jim Sullivan could have gone to. Most people believe that he was abducted by aliens. The last time he was ever seen, Jim was walking away from his car, seemingly in the middle of the desert. His body has never been recovered, and no one ever saw him again. There hasn't been any evidence to suggest he was murdered or kidnapped. The only thing that makes any sense is that Jim either wandered into the desert and somehow got lost and buried in the sand, or an extraterrestrial life form came down from the heavens and abducted Jim, probably to force him to play gigs for free up in space. What do you think happened to Jim Sullivan? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3. Father John Patrick Kerrigan. Back in August of 1982, Father Reynaldo Rivera was murdered in New Mexico. 2 years later, in 1984, Father John Patrick Kerrigan vanished in Montana. Father John Patrick had only been at his church for about 4 days when he went missing. A bunch of bloody clothes were found just shortly after on the highway, along with a bloody coat hanger that had either been used to strangle him to death or to tie his hands. His car was then later found with a bloody shovel in the trunk, leading police to believe that he had been killed and then buried in an undisclosed location. But here's where Father Reynaldo Rivera becomes linked to this disappearance. Both men had been priests, and both men had been murdered suspiciously, and both murders involved a coat hanger. Even all these years later, nobody is entirely sure what happened to Father John Patrick, nor if this same man killed both priests. However, in 2015, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Helena released a list of 80 former priests and nuns who had been accused of sexually assaulting children in western Montana. Keep in mind, I just said 80 priests and nuns in western Montana, not throughout the entire United States. That's only one state. In any case, John Patrick Kerrigan's name was on that list. People now believe that both priests were killed by a rogue vigilante who wanted justice for something horrible that happened to his child, a disgusting crime that Father Kerrigan and Father Rivera may have been involved in. Number 2. Joseph Force Crater. In August of 1930, New York Supreme Court Judge Joseph Force Crater disappeared while walking on the streets of Manhattan. The mystery surrounding his vanishing earned him the strange title of the missingest man in New York. According to the History Channel, Joseph was born to Irish immigrants in 1889 and grew up in Pennsylvania. He worked very hard to become a lawyer, and ultimately Franklin D. Roosevelt gave him a spot on the state bench. But unfortunately, this guy had a reputation for being a shady individual. He apparently had an issue with showgirls. On August 6, 1930, Joseph was seen destroying documents in his office. He then took out $5,000 from his bank, which was a lot at the time, and then he went to dinner with a couple friends and vanished into thin air. Initial speculation claimed that Joseph had fled the country with a mistress, but he was declared legally dead in 1939. And then in 2005, police in New York accidentally stumbled upon new evidence that could explain what happened to this judge. A woman who died in 2005 had left behind a handwritten note in which she described her husband and a few other men murdering Joseph Crater and burying his body beneath the Coney Island boardwalk. Oddly enough, nobody ever went to investigate this lead. The body of Judge Joseph Force Carter could still be buried under the boardwalk to this very day. Number 1. The vanishing of Hale Boggs. In 1972, Congressman Hale Boggs boarded a twin-engine Cessna 310 airplane bound for Alaska, but he never made it. The disappearance of Hale Boggs and the other members of his party aboard the plane resulted in the largest search and rescue operation ever conducted in the United States of America. 40 military aircraft and 50 civilian airplanes got involved, and about 325,000 square miles were searched over a span of about 3,600 hours. But after 39 days, the plane was never found and neither was Hale Boggs. Did their plane go down somewhere in the wild tundras of Alaska, or did something more sinister happen? To not find any evidence of airplane wreckage anywhere seems totally bizarre, especially considering the amount of effort that went into the search. This mysterious disappearance is a little controversial because Hale Boggs had strong doubts about the official report on the Kennedy assassination. The congressman had been interested in probing into the depths of the JFK case files to find out what was really going on, and there are those who believe he had been assassinated himself for being just a little too nosy. This has to be one of the dumbest things people have ever done. It's a video of a man who got caught on video trying to catch a giant spider on his ceiling using a bowl. This particular spider was a giant huntsman, which are some of the biggest, hairiest, and scariest spiders in Australia. They're also huge pests that invade people's homes. It's not clear in the video how exactly the giant huntsman spider got onto the man's ceiling, but he also didn't really seem to be in any mood to leave. So the Australian got onto a ladder, carefully raised what appeared to be a plastic bowl, and tried to catch the huntsman, probably to remove it peacefully from the house. Of course, it didn't work out very well for this guy. When he tried to catch the spider, it instead jumped off of the ceiling and directly onto this guy's face, causing him to scream, fall off the ladder, and scurry out of the room before the video ended. This was obviously not a very bright idea, as it turned out that the huntsman spider was more terrifying to this guy and maybe even a little bit smarter than him too. What's the biggest spider you've ever seen? Did you have to catch it? Was it inside your house, or hopefully it was outside? Tell me about your scariest spider encounter in the comments section down below. Then remember to subscribe to World List for more hilarious videos just like this one. Number 9. Gorilla Glue Hairdo. If the 2020 quarantine taught the world anything, it's that people are a whole lot dumber than they appear. For example, when people are trapped in their homes for long periods of time, they tend to get bored and drawn to the stupidest activities you can possibly imagine. Take the woman who went viral during the quarantine because she applied Gorilla Glue directly to her head as a way to keep her hairstyle exactly the same. I mean, you know, she thought by gluing her hair in place, she could have the exact same look for all of eternity. Of course, you're supposed to use a special wig glue that's safe for your skin if you want to preserve your hairstyle. Gorilla Glue is industrial strength, meaning that this stuff does not come off. In fact, Gorilla Glue even commented on the woman's social media page. They told her the secret formula to get the glue out of her hair, but they did warn her that it would take a lot of time before it came out and that her hair might be permanently damaged. This may have been one of the most brain-dead experiments any human being could have performed on themselves. Number 8. Quarantine breakers. Imagine being so dumb that you thought you were above the law. This is exactly how dumb a newlywed couple from California was when they decided to spend their honeymoon in Hawaii during the pandemic. As you might already know, Hawaii has a strict self-quarantine rule that every visitor needs to abide by. But when a young couple in their 20s got married and decided to take their honeymoon to the Hawaiian Islands, they didn't plan on following the rules like everybody else. They entered the hotel after about 10 p.m. and were informed of the requirements for their quarantine by the hotel manager. However, they simply laughed at the manager and then went outside anyways to buy a pizza. The next day, the manager told the young honeymooners that they were not allowed to leave their room and that they were in violation of the rules. But nonetheless, they left their room again to go enjoy their honeymoon. Well, guess what? They spent the remainder of their honeymoon and their time in Hawaii under arrest. The hotel manager informed the police tracked the couple down, and they were arrested and charged for unsworn falsification to authority and violation of the mandatory 14-day quarantine. The couple were then forced to purchase a plane ticket back to mainland USA. In the end, they wasted a whole ton of money and a whole lot of time because they were too dumb to follow the rules. Number 7. Too many dogs. Just imagine being such a dumb animal breeder that you end up with a surplus of the very animals you're trying to sell and are forced to give up your business and surrender the animals to the authorities. Well, this is exactly what happened to a husky breeder in Colorado, who somehow ended up with 50 extra purebred Siberian huskies and was forced to give them up to 4 different animal shelters throughout Colorado, including shelters in Denver and Boulder. Now, the story from CBS Denver isn't exactly clear on what happened to the dumb breeder who let this happen, but they did say the animals are being taken care of and provided proper shelter. The dogs also had to receive medical and behavioral assessments. One of the officials involved in the project said that the dogs were in good health when they were seized, but were under-socialized and confused and would need behavioral support before they were able to be adopted. Just keep these kinds of situations in mind before you visit a breeder. Most of them are reasonable and trustworthy, but clearly not all of them. Number 6. Trapped in a stranger's garage. It's time to look at some seriously stupid incidents, like the woman in Brazil who got accidentally kidnapped because she was just so dumb. Here's what happened. First, a guy on a motorcycle opened his garage and drove his motorcycle out onto the street. At the same time this was happening, a woman happened to be passing by the motorcyclist's garage directly under his closing door. The automatic door swung closed as the motorcycle guy drove off, catching the woman completely unaware and literally scooping her into the stranger's garage. It acted like a broom, sweeping her into his random garage while she had just been walking down the street. And get this, the whole thing was caught on a surveillance tape, and it's probably one of the most hilarious videos currently on the internet. Imagine accidentally kidnapping yourself in a stranger's garage. The woman can even be seen pacing inside the garage, completely distraught, and trying to signal to the camera in case anyone was watching. According to a report from the Daily Mail, the woman was trapped in the garage for about an hour before being saved by another woman who was sweeping up the leaves outside. Hopefully, she wasn't late for any appointments. Number 5. Into a manhole. The next dumb person on our list might not be as stupid as she was just unlucky. It's honestly such a funny story that you need to hear it anyways. Here's what happened. Back in Brazil, a 27-year-old woman was riding her moped down the street when she was carelessly cut off by a bad driver in a little red car who wasn't paying attention when making a left turn. The driver of the vehicle struck the woman on her moped, causing an absolute catastrophe. And as if it wasn't bad enough to be knocked off her moped by an idiot in a car, the woman flew across the pavement, hit the sidewalk, and plummeted headfirst into an open manhole. This incident was captured on video, and you can clearly see the woman tumbling across the pavement directly into a sewer opening, almost like a bowling ball rolling nicely into the gutter. And in case you think I'm exaggerating, I'm definitely not. The woman completely disappears into the manhole. Even stranger is that later on in the video, you can see the woman emerging from the manhole without the helmet she had previously been wearing. Either she took the helmet off herself, or it cracked when she fell into the dark abyss of the sewer. But whatever the case, at least she was wearing one. The woman's helmet very well might have saved her during this unfortunate tumble. As for the horrible driver in the red car, he apparently got away without getting into any trouble at all. Number 4. Falling asleep on the job. The star of this crazy adventure is either very dumb or just very lazy. It's impossible to say, but take a look at what happened. A Subway employee was recently captured on film literally falling asleep in the middle of making a sandwich for a customer. It's funny because she had most of the sandwich already done and looked to be applying the salt and pepper when she literally passed out. slowly sinking her face onto the table until she nestled her nose into the customer's sandwich. The woman was then completely asleep, using the sandwich as a pillow. I mean, of course, the woman was probably so tired she literally couldn't stay awake. And now that I think about it, this might be a little sadder than it is dumb, but it still must have been an absolutely hilarious experience to witness a Subway employee falling asleep while adding toppings and sauces to what appears to be a ham sandwich. Number 3. Samurai at the gym. This video wouldn't be complete without at least one dumb guy at the gym. Anyone who spends any amount of time working out in public knows that people are ridiculous and do some seriously weird stuff at the gym. Take this guy who brought a samurai sword with him to the gym to do some very strange training exercises. He wielded the sword while riding on a resistance bike, probably training for some kind of chariot battle. Then on the treadmill, he thought it would be a good idea to recreate a scene from Gladiator. He did more training with the sword while doing sit-ups, probably imagining himself fighting a zombie horde. And at this point, you have to wonder what the guy was thinking. Was it just a fake video to get some attention? Was the guy really dumb enough to wield a sword inside of a gym? Possibly even putting others at risk? And the real question is, was he really training to be some kind of samurai? I kind of want the answer to all of those questions. Number 2, the dumbest criminal. Criminals are definitely not always the smartest people in the world. Even the best bank robbers tend to be a little bit on the dumb side, not even getting away with their crimes. But a man named Andrew Hennels took his stupidity to a level unseen before in the criminal underworld. The armed robber boasted on Facebook that he had plans to raid a supermarket. He literally posted in his Facebook account that he was going to rob Tesco, and then he posted pictures of himself with the very knife he would use to rob the store. And I mean, of course, the guy was caught quite swiftly. Within just 15 minutes of the robbery, police caught the man and his knife and the roughly $500 he got away with from the local supermarket. According to Sergeant Pete Jessup, who had been involved with the case, it was bizarre and unusual. And of course, it was also incredibly dumb. Number 1, penguin theft. How dumb do you have to be to steal a penguin? The answer is very, very stupid. And you must be really quite dumb to steal a famous penguin from a theme park in Australia. And yet this is exactly what 3 men did when they broke into the park in the middle of a Saturday night. They swam in the dolphin enclosure, and then they stole a 7-year-old penguin named Dirk. But what's really horrifying is that the fools who decided to steal the penguin simply let it go into the wild, where it had no business being. The tiny bird had never lived in the wild on its own. It had no idea what to do outside. But thankfully, SeaWorld received a call from a concerned member of the public who spotted the penguin just a day after the robbery, and it was being chased out of a nearby park by a dog. The poor confused penguin was eventually recaptured and brought back into the park. The information from the public then helped the police capture the 3 buffoons who had committed the crime. And kind of like the last foolish criminal we talked about, these guys were caught after posting what they had done on Facebook. According to the report from the BBC, all 3 penguin kidnappers have since been charged with stealing, trespassing, and unlawful kidnapping of a protected animal. So, what's the dumbest thing you've ever witnessed? Let me know in the comments, and thanks as always for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for all the latest and greatest videos from World List.